Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah. We have a teaching in the deen that pertains
In 1,000 feet, turn right, then turn left.
It pertains to the integrity between intention and action, between the issue of belief and the issue of action and where that takes us to. When there is a correlation, or when there is integrity, or when there is an informing of our action by belief. In other words, our belief should be manifested in our action. To get to that point is a process. And that's why you find that the scholars in the past, they have talked about the difficulty of mastering intention in action. Right? Because there's the issue of needing to be aware of how it is that we contradict ourselves.
The same part.
And how it is that we could be in a situation where we don't follow through on what it is that we believe and what it is that we intend. That's extremely important. That's extremely important to comprehend and to understand. How it is that our intention, our belief, and our action should all integrate with each other. Because our belief is something that we hold dear, is something that's manifested in action, but it's that intention that bonds our belief and our action together. Why are we doing what we're doing? For what purpose? And that's why in every act of worship, belief is necessitated. Acts of worship don't become acts of worship without there being intention. So we hear a lot of talk in Aqidah, but what begins to bother, or what is worrisome, or what is the issue which is concerning, is that we don't talk about the problem of hypocrisy of action, meaning the fact that we end contradicting ourselves in our action. We believe, but we go against our belief by our action. That's important to understand, that we believe, but we go against what it is that we believe by our actions. And that's what's called hypocrisy of intention, or Nifaaq Al-Amali. That is detrimental to us, because Iman increases and it decreases with our deeds. So if it increases and decreases with our deeds, and if we're operating out of a negligent attitude towards ourselves, when we contradict ourselves, when we know that certain things we hold dear and hold true, certain things we should be acting upon, and we don't act upon them, and we never take a moment to reflect upon ourselves, then we're in a bad state. Then that means that that lesson in Aqidah was a lesson that didn't have value. It was theoretical. Value for ourselves. It may have value for the mention of the name of Allah and so on and so forth, but value as far as transformative in our lives, that's what I'm talking about. And that is the difference between what we saw in the older generation and the younger generation, is that the issue of a Nifaaq Al-Amali was something, and we have that statement even in popular culture, be about it. Keep it real. You understand? Keep it 100. Although those statements are a representation of the philosophy of integrity, but because a lot of times people, they use that stuff as empty words, they really don't grasp what is the true meaning of that. If you're talking about keeping it 100, you're talking about having integrity between what it is that you say you're about and being about it. That's like 101 urban culture. You know what I'm saying? And so that's a serious problem that we have before us. That there's a lot of talk, but there's not enough understanding of how to gain integrity, right? How to have integrity with the self. Another thing is that we live in a time period where we don't necessarily believe that sin has an impact on ourselves. And again, if when people talk about Iman and they talk about the necessity of Aqidah first and so on and so forth, I'm more and more suspicious of the whole concept. And I know the concept itself, and I know where it came from, and I know who promoted it and so on and so forth, but I'm suspicious of how it is that has been digested. It's not a battle rap. It's not I'm the first to be able to wrap off what it is that we believe. We believe in Tawheed, we believe in this and that. But what does that Tawheed mean as if we're rolling around with the Nifaaq Al-Amali? Didn't we put enough attention on that part? I don't think we did. You know what I'm saying? Where we have a lack of integrity between what we say we believe and what we're doing. And that brings us to the crisis of spirituality in the lives of many of us. The issue of tazkiyat al-nafs, it was written off as a bid'ah, and the bid'ah is to leave off the tazkiyat al-nafs, to leave off the importance, of the purification of the self. The purification of the self comes with the correct understanding of action in our lives. When we say that Iman increases and decreases with our deeds, and yet we ignore Nifaaq al-Amali, it means we didn't understand the lesson of Aqidah. It means that you didn't comprehend the lesson of Aqidah. I didn't comprehend the lesson of Aqidah. We as a community didn't comprehend the lesson of Aqidah. We didn't. When we have to fight each other on the issue of sin, and I'm not talking about that we boss each other around, because some of us have mental health issues. Some of us are not in a good state of being. We're not there to be able to complete with the deed. It's known. We just don't talk about it. We talk about it, but we don't really talk about it. I'm saying that the reality of it hasn't hit us, of what it is that is going on with many of us. But this issue, the issue of sin having an impact, we don't realize that sin impacts our Iman. It impacts our perception of ourselves and our lives. And so a lot of us, we stay, نحن في دائرة مغلقة. We're in a enclosed circle in which we find ourselves in a self-destructive modality, in which our Iman has difficulty of increasing because of the little attention that we pay to the role of sin, and because of the problem of Nifaaq al-Amali. There's no integrity between our deeds and what it is that we say that we practice. And it's hard to get there because we haven't focused on the issue of education. You know what I'm saying? It's hard to get there because we haven't focused on the issue of education. What I mean by education, I mean tarbiyah. التربية الروحانية الأخلاقية التطبيقية. You know what I'm saying? There's no way around that. The grooming and the guiding and the forming of the spiritual dimension in our character. There's a reason why the word khalq and khuluq are overlapping with each other. When we read and we talk about being the people of hadith, but when we look at the Shamal Imam al-Tirmidhi, he describes the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam khalqihi, in his physical appearance, and he describes him alayhi salatu wasalam in khuluqih, in his character. And so the character is that which brings us to our fitrah, to our nature. And if you want to use fitrah as an argument for tawheed, then when our fitrah is perverted and destroyed, and we're operating out of a modality of Nifaaq al-Amali and sin, then our Aqidah is busted. I don't have any more conversation after this, but to say that, look, we need to really do some deep self-examination and try to figure out how to have integrity, or else we're going to just collapse more than we are, and it's a deep reality. Assalamu alaikum.